أهلا بكم طالبات وطلاب جريد 1 بريب. برحب بكم في حلقة ماث جديدة تحت رعاية وإشراف وزارة التربية والتعليم. Today we are going to talk about the square root of a rational number and the relationship between the square root and power of 2. So let's get started. The square root of a rational number. Our warming up for today's lesson number 1. We know that 5 squared, it means 5 times 5, which is 25. And we read it as the square of 5 is 25, or 5 squared is 25. For example, 0 squared equals 0, 1 squared equals 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. 2 squared equals 4, 3 squared equals 9, not 6, because 3 times 3, 4 squared equals 16. Number 2, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3, or always positive number or without sign. Number 3, 0.36, we can write it as a fraction 36 over 100, because there are 2 decimal places, so we are going to write 100 because 100 it has 2 zeros. That's what we need in today's lesson. So let's get started. Any number multiplied by itself equals a perfect number. So 0 times 0 is 0, so 0 is a perfect number. 1 times 1 is 1, so 1 is a perfect number. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 is a perfect number, and the same for 9 and 16. So 0, 1, 4, 16 are called perfect numbers. Definition: the square root of a perfect rational number A is the number whose square equals A. The square root of 0 equals 0, and the square root of 1 equals 1, square root of 4 equals 2, square root of 9 equals 3, and square root of 16 equals 4. So the square root, we can get out the number from the square root by a number, and this number, it should be multiplied by itself. So for example, the square root of 25 is 5. Why? Because 5 times 5 equals 25. And under the square root, we have to put perfect number or big number, and we are going to get it out a small number. Here we have remark. Number 1, if A is a negative number, then the square root of A is meaningless, because there is no number multiplied by itself is negative number. As we know, negative times negative is positive, and positive times positive is positive. So there is no meaning for the negative number. So the square root of a negative number, it is meaningless. Number 2, the square root of A squared, it is the absolute value of A. So why we wrote the absolute value of A? For example, I have a square root of 3 to the power of 2. We are gonna write the square root of 3 and get it out as 3. Okay, what about the square root of negative 3 all to the power of 2? So we are gonna get it as the absolute value of negative 3, then the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So don't forget to get it without sign. So here the absolute value of 3 squared is 3, and the absolute value of negative 3 squared is 3. Then the square root of A over B all to the power of 2, we are going to write the absolute value of A over B. The same for this example, the square root of negative 4 over 5 all to the power of 2, put the absolute value to cancel the sign, so we are going to write it as 4 over 5. 3, the square root of A squared times B squared equals the square root of A times B all to the power of 2. And as we know, power of 2, immediately put the absolute value of it. I need you here to focus with me about the sign and the absolute value. I'm gonna write it here. Always the square root will cancel power 2. Always. So we are gonna get out a times b. And don't forget to put the absolute value to cancel any sign. Now, for the square root of a to the power of n, so we are going to write it as the absolute value of a to the power of n over 2. So if we have any power inside the square root, we are going to get half of it. So, for example, a, here the square root of a to the power of 6, we are going to divide this 6 by 2. So it is the absolute value of a to the power of 6 over 2, which is the absolute value of a to the power of 3 and equals a to the power of 3. Number 5, if x squared equals a, then x equals positive or negative square root of a. Here we have equation, okay? So we have a variable and number. If you have a variable, so when you take the square root, you have to put positive and negative the square root of the number. So for example, if x squared equals 9, then x equals positive or negative the square root of 9. Here, I'm gonna write it. We can write the square root for both sides. And when you take it, when we have a variable, so write positive and negative for the number. Okay, so it is positive or negative 3. Example, find each of the following in simplest form. Number 1, the square root of 36. Immediately we are going to think about 36 equals what times itself. As we know, 36 equals 12 times 3. 9 times 4 and 6 times 6. Which one is correct? 6 times 6, because it should be a number multiplied but by itself. So the square root of 36 equals 6. 2. The square root of 16 over 25. We are going to get out 16 under the square root and 25 too. The square root of 16 is 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, and the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. So the correct answer is 4 over 5. Number 3, negative the square root of 25 over 81. And also do the same, the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator, and don't forget this sign which is out of the square root. So it is negative 5 over 9. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 81 is 9, because 9 times 9 is 81. Number 4, the square root of a to the power of 10. As we said right now, if we have any power inside or under the square root, we have to divide it by 2. So it becomes a to the power of 10 over 2, which is a to the power of 5. And don't forget the absolute value. If you have any sign, cancel the sign. Brackets. Find each of the following in the simplest form. Number 1, the square root of 49b to the power of 8 over 100c to the power of 6. Let's think about the numbers first. The square root of 49 is 7, because 7 times 7 is 49. The square root of 100 is 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. What about b to the power of 8? Immediately divide by 2. So divide by 2, so it is 8 over 2, which is 4, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 7 over 7b to the power of 4 over 10 times c to the power of 3. Now, we have another one. The square root of 0.64. Let me ask you, how many decimal places are there here? there are 2 decimal places. So we are going to rewrite it as 64 over 100. I said it in the beginning of the session. So here 64, we are going to get it out as 8 because 8 times 8 is 64, and the square root of 100 is 10 because 10 times 10 is 100. Then we can simplify it by dividing by 2 up and down. So when I divide by 2, we will get 8 divided by 2 equals 4, 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Now we have a square root of a mixed number. How can we do it? We have to rewrite the mixed number as an improper fraction. So we are going to multiply 4 times 2 equals 8 plus 1, which is 9 over 4. So here it is. It is the square root of 9 over 4, then the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. What about number 4? The square root of 1.44. So here I need you to focus on the mixed number and decimal. When you have a mixed number like question 3, we have to rewrite it as an improper fraction by multiplying the denominator by the whole, then add the numerator. 4 times 2 equals 8 plus 1 equals 9 over 4. Number 4, we are gonna rewrite this decimal as fraction. So 144 over 100. And 144, the absolute value, the square root of it is 12, and the square root of 100 is 10. Then divide by 2 up and down, you will get 6 over 5. Another exercise, here we have find each of the following in the simplest form. Number 1, the square root of 25 over 4. Can I get out the square root of 25 and 4? Of course, it's so easy. So of 25 is 5 and the square root of 4 is 2. Number 2, 3.6 over 10. I need to get the square root of it. Oh, how many decimal places are there right now? Here we have 1 decimal place. So we are going to rewrite it here, 36 over 10. And we have already another 10. So here it is. It becomes the square root of 36 over 100. How 100? Because the first 10, it is written in the question. The second 10, it comes from the decimal place. We have 1 decimal place. So we will write 36 over 10. Then 10 times 10 is 100. Then get out 36 as 6, 10 as, or 100 as 10. Then divide by 2 up and down, 3 over 5. Number 3, the square root of 900. 900 is 30 times 30. There are 2 zeros, so we can write 30 times 30 because 9 is 3 times 3. And get out one of them, so it is 30. Now we have remark. If finding the square root of a perfect number is hard to do, then we factorize it into its prime factors. Let me remind you what the prime number means. What does it mean? Prime number means it has only 2 factors, 1 and itself. Like what? Like 3, 1 times 3. Like 5, 1 times 5. 4 is not prime because it's 2 times 2. 9 is not prime because it's 3 times 3, and so on. 11 is prime number. So we are going to divide this number by all the prime factors of it. So for example, find the square root of 441 in the simplest form. Let's write the factors or the prime factorization for 441. I'm going to divide by 3 first. So 4 divided by 3 is 1. Remainder 1. So we have 14 now. 14 divided by 3 is 4. Remainder 2. and 21 divided by 3 is 7. Then divide by 3 again, it is 49. 49 divided by 7 is 7. And 7 divided by 7 is 1. We got 1 at the end. So we are going to rewrite 441 as 3 times 3 times 7 times 7. As you can see here, we have 2 3's. So we are going to take one of them. And also we have 7 twice. So we are going to take one of them. So the square root of 441 equals the square root of 3 squared times 7 squared, which is 3 times 7 equals 21. Remark: when there is addition or subtraction operation under the square root, we have to add or subtract first, then find the square root. Keep that in mind. Not allowed to distribute the square root for addition or subtraction. So when we have any addition or subtraction under the square root, we have to add and subtract first. Then think about the square root. Okay, for example, find each of the following in the simplest form. Number 1, the square root of 16 plus 9 equals the square root of 25 equals 5. Now, I'm going to do it by another way, but it's wrong, by the way, but to keep or to pay attention for it. Don't say the square root of 16 is 4 and the square root of 9 is 3, then add 4 plus 3 is 7. No, completely wrong. Okay, so we have to do it by this way. We have to add or subtract first. So we have to add 16 plus 9. 16 plus 9 is 25. Then think about the square root right now. The square root of 25 is 5. Second one, we have subtraction. The square root of 100 minus 36. So we have to subtract first. 100 minus 36 equals 64. Under the square root, then the square root of 64 equals 8. Now we have a video from AKB. Let's watch it.
Is a clever student. He wants to get the gold cup prize. But he needs help to get the value of the square root and solve its problems. Let's help him do that. What is the value of square root of 25x square y square over 36 in its simplest form? We give the square root of 25, which is 5, and the square root of 36, which is 6. As for x square and y square, by getting their square roots, they are equal to the absolute value xy. Now let's solve more exercises. Please press on the next tab. Find the value of square root of 9 plus 16 in the simplest form. When there is addition under the square root, it must be performed first before finding the square root. Therefore, the summation of 9 plus 16 is 25. So the square root of 25 is 5. Or in another method, the square root of 9 plus 16 equals the square root of 25, which equals the square root of 5 to the power 2, which equals 5. How about taking another example? Please press on the next tab. Find the value of square root of 16a to the power of 4 over 25d squared. The square root of 16a to the power of 4 is 4a squared, while the square root of 25d squared is 5d. So the square root of 16a to the power of 4 over 25d squared equals 4a squared over 5d. Now let's move to a higher level with a more complicated example. Press on the next tab. For the following example in simplest form, square root of 49 over 4 multiplied by 2 over 7 all to the power 0 multiplied by negative 2 over 7 all to the power 2. First, the value of the first term square root of 49 over 4 is 7 over 2. Second, the value of the second term 2 over 7 all to the power of 0 is 1. Third, the value of the third term, negative 2 over 7 all square, is positive 2 over 7 to the power of 2. Now we get 7 over 2 multiplied by 4 over 49. By simplification, we get 2 over 7. Yes, from those examples, Omar was able to solve any example on the square root, and he received the Gold Cup prize.
Now let's take more problems to solve it on the whiteboard. Now we have another example here. Find each of the following in the simplest form. The square root of 20 over 5. So I cannot get out 20 from the square root and 5. So let's divide. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Then the square root of 4 is 2. Second one. The square root of 2 and 1/4 plus the square root of 25 over 4. Here we have mixed number, as we said. Multiply 4 times 2, then add 1. So it becomes the square root of 9 over 4 and the square root of 25 over 4 as it is. Now the square root of 9 is 3 and the square root of 4 is 2. The same for the square root of 25 is 5 over 2. So we are going to add because we have like denominators. So it is 8 over 2 and 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Number 3. The square root of 4 over 9 times 5 over 7 to the power of 0. As we know, any number to the power of 0 equals 1. So it is the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of 9 is 3 times 1 equals itself, which is 2 over 3. Then complete the square root of negative 3 over 25 all to the power of 2. So we have missing numbers. So we are going to complete them here. The first one, we are going to write the absolute value of the negative 3 over 25 and then get it out from the absolute value, so it becomes 3 over 25. Number 2, the square root of 5 over 7 to the power of 2, so equals. Here I need to write two numbers, so the first one is 25, 5 squared, the second one is 49, then get it out from the square root, so 25 as 5, the square root of 49 as 7. Now find the perimeter of a square whose area is 1.44 squared centimeters. Here, as we know, the perimeter equals 4L or 4 times the side, okay? And here the area is L squared, the side times itself. We are going to replace A with its value. A is given in the question, which is 1.44, and L squared as it is. We have two decimal places, so we are going to write it as 144 over 100. Then take the square root of it, and here we are going to write the square root. I didn't write positive or negative here. Why? Because I said when we have any equation, we have to put positive or negative. But no need to write it because we are talking about length. So the side length. So it's not allowed to be negative, okay? And keep that in mind. So the absolute value of 144 is 12. And the absolute value of 100 is 10. Now we got the side length. To get the perimeter, here it is, we are going to divide by 2 up and down to simplify it. Then the perimeter equals 4 times the side length, so which is 4 times 6 over 5 is 24 over 5 and divide by it, so it is 4 and 4 over 5. So that is the perimeter and the unit is centimeters. That's all about today's lesson. So the square root, we have to write under the square root a perfect number. Any number times itself under the square root, we are going to get one of them. So the square root of 25 is 5, the square root of 36 is 6, and so on. I hope it was clear for everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.